I'm excellent at predictions, except those about the future, sort of thing. US, in a nutshell, you've seen a sort of tale of two cities, I think, in recent years. Jendai Fraser and the end of the last Bush administration, there was a relatively strong and significant push to do what's now called Option A, as I talked about, in effect, transition from an African Union peacekeeping force into a larger, basically a more robust UN peacekeeping force. That push or plea, if you like, fell largely on deaf ears from Europeans, a lot of African states, for I think the reasons I was trying to lay out earlier. You know, the prospect of a lot of foreign peacekeeping troops in Somalia is not, to my mind, what is really needed. I think, you know, the thrust of your point earlier, that in effect there needs to be largely local solutions to these local political problems, I think is right. And as I see it, the influx of foreign troops provides more of a sort of leverage tool, if you like, for the more extremist elements who can, you know, frame these peacekeepers as foreign insurgents, invaders, infidels, whatever. And I think you've seen that then reflected more in the new incoming administration. Susan Rice taking over position at the UN Security Council for the United States, from her statements that I've seen at least so far, seemed to make it fairly clear that the idea of a big US push for a big UN peacekeeping force was not necessarily the way to go in Somalia now. And I think that's where we find now the options. As for the future of US policy, I mean, what I think is happening at the moment is basically a debate within the administration, and the new administration in particular, to find its feet in a set of shifting sands, I think, at the moment. And I think maybe discretion being the better part of valor. As I understand it, there's probably still a group in the United States government who do see Somalia largely through the prism of counter-terrorism, largely see the need for military strikes of the type that we saw earlier against the Shabab and the criminals suspected of the 1998 embassy bombings and what have you. But on the other hand, I think, particularly from the new administration officials that would have come in, more of a sort of cautionary, okay, is this necessarily, you know, is military means going to be the best way to solve a political problem? My guess is that the latter group are sort of achieving the upper hand now. So I think you'll see more of a US role as a participant in this debate, as I said, about how is AMISOM going to leave, which of these options for US engagement is the better one. But I don't see, you know, I do see a change in the administration from this big push for a big UN peacekeeping operation and solely looking at Somalia as a potential terrorism problem, to a broader engagement with recognizing that Somalia's problems, as you said, are basically one of political and largely one of political conflict and state collapse.